Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases.
Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight. If you're new to the channel, absolutely, you're welcome and appreciate you being here tonight. As always, in our chat, have respect for families, mods, and each other. We'll have a short presentation or about half the show about presentation, after which I'll answer any questions that you may have. So just throw them in the chat, and Mrs. Steve will be keeping up with those as we go. Tonight, of course, we're going to be focusing on one.
Weather.
Oh, yes, weather.
Got another
Oh,
one.
yeah. We're getting some weather alerts down here. So if we jump off the air or something due to some weather related incident, just bear with us. We'll get back.
Or the puppies help you out.
Yeah. Or dogs get upset or the power goes off. Just hang with us. And as soon as the generators kicked in, we'll be back. But I forgot about that. But anyway, we're going to be looking specifically at the one aspect of some of the information that came out with the Richard Allen hearing and about the confessions that were noted by both the prosecutor and the defense. And what does that mean? And a lot of people have been sending me comments, emails, and discussing, is it true? And I give it a high degree, and I'll explain it as we go through the presentation of why I believe absolutely it's true, and that due to the fact of how the defense embraced this and getting ahead of the storm. You see that a lot in politics, that when politicians come out with the story first, trying to put their spin on it so everyone has understanding, and that way they can lean it towards a certain position that they will continue along that line of and position to tell that the way they want it to be heard. Not meaning that is the only way it will be seen, but people a lot of times will try to get ahead of the storm, and I believe that's what the defense did with this. But anyway, let's get into it. The presentation there. All right. If you have any information on the death of Libby and Abby, absolutely make sure law enforcement has that information so that justice will come. And even if you believe it's been out there and it's something that's not mainstream media or something, absolutely tip it in, because law enforcement will be needing assistance all the way through this case, because we have these tentacles and things that have been mentioned by ISP, and I don't understand all the tentacles, and we have different avenues of investigations and search warrants that's come out throughout this case. What's connected and what's not, I have no idea, but it's an extremely interesting case, and it's extremely important that justice is found. All right. Of course, we're talking about Richard Allen, and in my last show, I spoke about how he appears to be defeated, and I believe that's the case, that he has been worn down by the system and by the guilt of what he has committed. If he is the one that is responsible for these homicides of two innocent, I have no mercy for him. But he still has to be convicted of that. But, from what evidence I looked at and everything, it looks like it's going to go that way. But the jury has to decide that, not me. But court date's been set for the starting of the selection of a jury in 2024, early January. And then, of course, we're waiting for some of these documents to be released this week. And some of them may have, and I just haven't seen it. But I'm can't wait to see some of the information. Everything, there's several things I really like to see. I have a top tier list of what I would want, but most importantly, I want to see what they took from his home. I want to see those items. Was it clothing? Was it any type of um, uh, weapons other than the firearm? We know they have the firearm, but additional weapons and clothing and any electronic devices, because I expect it's going to be somewhere along the same avenue of what they looked at Logan. And then, of course, I'm looking forward to whenever the date will be for the ballistic suppression hearing, because that's critical. If they can't get that suppressed, and I don't even know if we're going to make it to that hearing, if this confession stuff is as important as I think it can be to this case. But we have certain statements, of course, this being the biggest statement, and this will get into court. I see no way that this will not make it into court. I do not see any way that the defense will be able to keep out this first statement made by Richard Allen to a law enforcement officer through contact, out of custody, at a store, and he was free to go after making this statement. So he wasn't in custody. There was no interrogation. They were a witness, and he makes a lot of statements about being on the bridge at a specific time during a specific period. And of course, in this particular statement, he doesn't say what he's wearing. That came along in 2022 in a later statement, but he does mention about being on the bridge and seeing some of the other witnesses and who corroborated his presence on the trails that day. And he mentions that his phone was there. And is that true or not? And will that show up in the records? That he says that his phone was active. He says, and but will that data that from the cell phone towers support that, or will it show that prior to the crime his phone was turned off and was off for some extended time during the commission of this crime, and then it came back on, which will be huge too. His phone is basically a no-win situation for him in this particular instance, and so I don't see any of this getting kicked out of court, and this is a huge obstacle for the defense to overcome, especially if that bullet is also admitted into the unspent round is admitted into court. But anyway, we have that the prosecutor, McClellan, said during the June 15 hearing that Allen had confessed to the homicides 5 or 6 times to multiple people while incarcerated. And words mean things. He says multiple people. Now, multiple people can include inmates, but the answer that is supporting from the defense doesn't mean and doesn't suggest inmates. And so we have to see who else within the government might have heard this. Is it guards? Is it other state employees or serving at some capacity within the prison system there? And also there's other avenues, phone calls, and I'm going to give you a surprise at the end of something that I had forgotten about, but through my research, I found it and I had forgotten that it is a option that law enforcement can do and has done in the past, and it was upheld. Last I knew of the findings by the Supreme Court, but and the reason I say that if McClellan had mentioned inmates, it puts this in a totally different perspective. And that if we looked at the confessions were made to inmates, which I believe they were, because if you're out there and you're confessing to some of these multiple people, and they are of some type of capacity with the state, when you're in some type of facility and other people are discussing things with you with inmates, and you have access to any of those in any shape, form, or fashion, because there's contact. I don't care how isolated they say he is, there's still abilities of contact. So we'll have to see where it goes. And if he's confessing to any of the persons employed in any manner, he's probably has already confessed to some of the inmates also. And then when we get to the defense attorneys, that their spin and getting ahead of the storm, they of course say that these dramatic changes in Allen's condition, including his change in demeanor, change in appearance, and change in his overall mental status. And they made mention that his incriminating statements were the result of this stressful environment within the prisons there at Westville Correctional Facility. And like I said, they're having to put a spin on it. And these words have something in it also that you look at. And they nowhere in here do they mention that these confessions were to other inmates. And I believe that gives credibility that these statements we are going to find out will be made to either families through phone calls or to professionals or employees of the state. And we'll probably also, like I said in the previous slide, we'll find that there also will be some confession to inmates. If they do a survey and do a canvassing of the inmates that have access to him or any part of the facilities. I don't, the maximum security prisons, like I said, there's always abilities of people being able to yell stuff. And other cell facility or areas of the jail can still hear certain information if it's passed along and people are screaming certain things. And so we'll just have to see where that goes. But even Ted Bundy, looking at other confessions within the that happened inside the jail, and I brought this up for the fact that Ted Bundy contacted one of the investigators out of Washington State and to do interviews with, and also with the FBI. He did multiple interviews with a lot of different people and investigators trying there at the end. But one of them was when he went into detail about the homicide of one of his victims. And so it's just absolutely amazing that at some point of what people will do when they get in a certain when they're put into a corner and they're not facing any way to get out of it. And Bundy did that himself. And is Richard Allen placing himself in that same situation that he's backed into a corner? There's no way out. And the quickest way out is through these possibilities of these confessions. And like I said, early on when I first heard it, I didn't give it a lot of weight. And I thought, well, maybe it's just jailhouse confessions to inmates. But when I started looking at the words, both the prosecution and defense, and they weren't instantly, the defense wasn't instantly saying, well, this is just some inmate wanting to get a sweet deal, and which means something, because that's those, who in the world, although there have been convictions of people that through jailhouse confessions to other inmates that worked and had some type of deal for leniency or other things relating to other charges they faced. And so those confessions, you just have to look at them. And the only way that you can give them any weight if an inmate steps forward is if that inmate has details of the crime that would be impossible for him to ever be aware of. And it's not something in social media or newspaper. And he has details of a crime that only the offender would know. And which, if Richard Allen is the offender, as I believe he is, he knows details about that crime scene that law enforcement doesn't even know. Now, law enforcement may hopefully has done an excellent job at the crime scene. and has a clear understanding. But even with the best guesses and the analysis and everything, there's always things that can happen at a crime scene that law enforcement just doesn't see. And it's not a perfect world out there. It's extremely difficult to work these crime scenes. But the jailhouse informant part of it, that if it was this, I believe that the defense would have jumped on this with both feet, that they would have said that you can't trust. The confessions are to certain people, individuals, and of course they're working sweet deals. And we don't see that currently. Now, I believe we may see that in the future as we look at this and we get a clearer understanding as the court hearings go and everything is heard and put out there. But these jailhouse informants, they actively, how I'm telling you, jailhouse informants actively speak with other criminals, especially the newer ones that come in, for the fact that some of them absolutely are nothing other than jailhouse informants. That's all they do. They make a living. They stay in and out of trouble all their lives, and they've at some point in their criminal incarceration period, they got a sweet deal over burning or getting a confession from someone or passed along information. Law enforcement uses criminal statements and intel all the time to further their cases. It's not always the best way, but you can get some things that will open doors and give you a lead here and there and tip. It's not that you instantly believe a criminal, but sometimes they will bring something to the table that you weren't aware of. But generally, when they do this, they do it for the one purpose that in exchange for them coming forward, that they want something from their sentence reduction, probation, or other inducements. They want something. Is it possible that some of the information that we have now is from that? It is, but like I said, the defense didn't go that route. The prosecution didn't go that route. They made pretty specific wording, and there's meaning within those words. Then through my research, I also saw that the Innocent Project stated that 15% of all wrongful convictions that are later exonerated because of DNA results also had false testimony by jailhouse informants. And that's huge, 15 out of 100. We always say that, we 1 versus 100. Well, this is 15 out of 100. That's a huge number of people that are falsely falsely convicted and later exonerated. And but that's still a low number. Overall, there's it's not like a large percentage of people get put in jail and falsely convicted, but are wrongfully convicted. But it is sad that we even have one. And hopefully at some point the system improves with modern technologies, and as we process these crime scenes and we have a better understanding of how to work these things and gather evidence, because technology is a lot of these cold cases that we look at that have gone unsolved for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. The DNA of what evidence that even before DNA was ever even thought of, that they're going back to and able to go in there and look at this information and clear up some of these wrongful convictions. Rightly so, because no one needs to be in jail wrong information. But then some of the other cases that we look at for the Court of Appeals, not only statewide, but all the way up to the Supreme Court, we have the Jacob Rubenstein, which is also Jack Ruby, who was the one that was shot Lee Harvey Oswald, that his jailhouse confession was improperly admitted into evidence at trial. And so there's, even if these confessions are admitted into the court, we have to look at that if they're not put in properly into evidence at the trial, it's for naught. And so we even there's a lot of case law out there for these. And we have other ones, whereas you have some of these jailhouse inmates that are coerced um, by these professional jailhouse uh, inmates that they work every angle they can. And these confidential informants, that's a real good, uh, nicer, kinder name for what the other inmates call jailhouse rats. Confidential informants is what law enforcement refers to them as. And they told the inmate who was suspected of a homicide that he could protect the suspect from tough treatment in prison in exchange for a confession to a homicide. And so, of course, within the United States Supreme Court, they had that it was coerced due to those threats. And so there's case law out there all across the board. And this is the part that is really interesting. Not so much the first part up here, where the jailhouse confessions may be discovered through means other than informants, such as placing a covert listening device in the subject's jail cell and monitoring their communications to see whether they make a self-incriminating statement. And that's the surveillance part of my thumbnail. I had forgotten about that. The Supreme Court had a ruling on this specific possibility of where listening devices in common areas and can be placed within cells where communications are. Everybody knows that most of the inmates absolutely are on the phones, and of course it has all the disclaimers about um, uh, this call will be recorded, it will be monitored, and can be used. There's all different types of those disclaimers whenever you're taking a call. If you receive one of those calls on your phones, you've heard the dialogue, and the inmates are made aware of that and a lot of different things. But in the 1977 U.S. versus Hearst, the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit held that the government's secret use of an electronic recording device to record a prisoner's conversation did not violate the Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution. And so they can use devices within the jails, on the phones, and it does not violate the Sixth Amendment. And I had forgotten some of that. I always, so there's devices that can be even in inmate cells. And is any of this on that? I don't know. If it is, once again, even if it was to another inmate and it was set up or staged for a conversation to occur, then we don't have to worry or put so much weight on putting an inmate on the stand that has to endure cross-examination because you'll have an actual recording. And was that done? And if it was done for the purpose, and this is where it's extremely walking the edge and won't be admitted, that if they set it up for an inmate to do an interview and get a confession, and he becomes an agent of the state, and the Miranda isn't advised, then of course that inmate, if he's working as agent of the state, can get that confession thrown out. So it's a double-edged sword, and so it's not like you can circumvent the Constitution by saying, okay, he's an inmate, I'm going to put another inmate in there, give him a list of questions, and we're going to get a confession, and we're good to go. It's not that easy. But there's, we'll just have to see which way these confessions are, what surveillance they were, and it won't be from, none of the confessions will come from interactions with Richard Allen and his attorneys. You're not going to be able to use any of the audio. If there is any capture, I don't expect that they captured any of the audio. Now, they may have had a lot of the video, and they would probably have to blur out any areas whereas someone might could read lips and possibly get some key information. But I don't expect that the prosecution, the prison systems, or any of that will allow any of the audio of those interactions with his attorneys to be brought into court. I know the court won't allow it, but we'll just have to see where it's going. But I do believe he made some confessions to some state employees, and we'll see where it goes. All right, we got any questions?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
All right, so let's see. Bot and the okay. Right. We've got us a blue light here.
True Crime Talk, Frank Mass. Appreciate it, Frank.
All right.
Got blue light on.
Well, I like my light.
This is Steven, or blue light. I've been doing it on them.
All right. Oh, I got another one. So see, I should have left it.
All right.
Emerald City, new subscriber.
Appreciate all y'all's support. We'll use it on the cold cases we got coming up. Now I'm going on a trip in just about 3 weeks.
Yep. All right. And Judy Brown, do you think he's faking it, or has he truly been affected?
That will probably be brought into court by the defense. The prosecution, of course, will just let it look whatever stance they have. But in the discovery part of it, whatever the medical records are, and the ever how he has been screened, interviewed by the professionals that have looked at him, both. And if there's going to be a question about it, they will have special hearings and special analysis of him by a third independent party to see if that's true or not. My personal opinion, it appears that from the observations and everything that he has been affected, and so. But that's just my personal opinion. There's people saying he's faking it, he's acting, and he could be, absolutely could be. But he was in pretty good shape there for a few months. But what's happened in the last couple of months is extremely different.
Okay. Let me hide that one.
Kelp $5 saying hi to Mr. Bojangles. Bonejangles. Yes, I had that name also. And if y'all don't know who Bonejangles is, it's Waffles. It's a skeleton that I have that I'm working on cold cases with. And Bonejangles, Indiana Bones, whatever you want to call him. He's a man of many names. But thank
Mr.
you.
Waffles for me.
Mr. Waffles.
Yeah, that was crazy.
He's on the midnight, the morning watch crew.
All right. And SP74 member 2 months.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Like I said, we couldn't do what we are currently doing without all y'all's support.
Molly, it says with message, but I don't get to see that. So I don't know what that message is. Maybe she'll bop it to me.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
All right. And let me go take that one off if I can figure out how to do that.
I think you just click on the next one, it pops over.
Well, this is those
okay.
Super chat things.
These Google machines still confuse us.
I'm getting it. All right. And Steve, do you think RA revisited the
crime scene?
Crime scene?
No, I don't. Now, I always thought it was possible until I went there, and when Purdue RN and Mr. Purdue RN and Mrs. Steve stayed in the vehicle, and I went in there in total darkness. It's extremely rugged, extremely hard to find in total darkness, and it's hard to get out of there. I had always thought, and if you're using a light, then of course there's other people out there searching would have made note of it. So I don't think that he revisited the crime scene. Now, did he do it? Did he revisit months later? Now that's absolute different story. Now, if you're talking about the night of, no, but well after the crime scene tape is removed, could he have gone back? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think he went back to the trails. Absolutely.
All right. And SB 74 said, thanks for untangling this tricky subject.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And it is tricky.
Oh, it is. And this is just my opinion. There's going to be so many theories and conspiracy theories both ways on it. And, but this is just my opinion of it and seeing what I've seen in trials and in courts and with inmates.
Okay. And Simon Wright, West Yorkshire. Do you think we will see the autopsy report?
No, I don't think they may, if they have any of it, it'll be heavily redacted.
All right. And from Dave, Steve, if the pings of the cell phones are out there are not accurate, how can they say RA's phone pings are accurate?
Well, just like what they did with the Logan's issue, nearby in the area, whatever. Plus, we have him, those pings along those trails at those critical times, because we have not only his phone, but we have those other witnesses that were on the trail and their phones. When you look at each of those pings and at specific times, if they support each other, then yes, it's good. Now, do I expect that they will constantly support each other? No, because Mrs. Steve, whenever she would do my pings, and it would be, I moved 10 feet, and it showed I moved 300 yards. Will some of that occur on these data, on those cell tower information? I expect so, but there'll be some instances where it will be accurate because they were, I don't know what the percentage that of all the times that she ran ping my phone, but there was a certain percentage of them that were accurate.
Mm-hmm. There were, really and truly. All right. All right. Hide. SB 74, could it be these confessions prompted the defense to move to a tactic of sympathy and mental illness?
Absolutely. Like I said, they try and get ahead of the storm. They won't put their spin on it, that what the state has done to him and put him in a situation that people within the prison had never seen before of a pre convicted person being put in that position, and the wear and tear. If he was in a regular jail, would they be trying to do the same thing? Probably so. They'd be trying to pitch the same story, I would expect. But yeah, absolutely, you're correct here. I believe that, true or not, that's what the defense is trying to do.
All right. And 63 clocks. No doubt jail is stressful, but it sounded like he has privileges such as iPad,
Commissary.
health care. Not clear to me how this facility is lacking.
And it's not. There, if everything was as bad as they're relating that this one prison is, you would be able to say that the mortality rate for that prison would probably be that most inmates can't live under those conditions but a year or two, and the mortality rate would be extremely high. And I don't think that's the case, and that for all the prisoners. And it's just how he is handling the stress and what's going on in that mind, only he knows. And the professionals that have had contact with him that work in that field. What is it?
Okay. You want to read this from Ruckus? Don't say it out loud because I don't know what it meant. The lightning of a kidney belt?
Yeah, he's just.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get with you in a little bit, Ruckus. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. So let's see here. I'll remove that and do that. In SB 74, isn't he segregated from inmates?
Yes, but that's not uncommon for a lot of inmates that they are segregated, but they're still, uh, you know, even in isolation. I've seen a lot of inmates in isolation, not as much as what Ruckus has. I mean, there's certain prisoners that the only time and most of the interaction they have is only with other um, employees and people that's when have certain roles within the facility. I mean, even in isolation, you're being checked on. You have the ability to communicate with guards and staff and medical calls and food. I mean, there's people there. It's not like you're staring at something and there's not people there checking on you. If he's under any type of self-harm watches and things, he's constantly being spoke to and evaluated because we don't want certain situations that have occurred to occur. And so it's not like he's um, living in some area and he never sees a human for weeks on end. That's not the case.
And from Molly at True Crime Web, are these charges on RA eligible for the DP? Is Nick McClellan qualified to try a DP case? If you know, I know RA's lawyers are.
Yes, and if not, the state will make sure that he is. But absolutely, and it, they even if he's not, I would expect that the state would make sure that he has the resources to do so. And most of the because the qualified attorneys thing is for the benefit of the accused. It's not for the benefit of the state. And so it's always the benefit of the accused. And that's how come they require these dual roles of two attorneys, one that has a higher standard of training and access and has been involved in high profile uh, DP cases. And then you have the that has a little bit, the second attorney that has a lesser role, but they're getting them qualified because throughout the natural evolution of these attorneys' careers is at some point these younger attorneys the mainstays and the reps for future DP cases.
And Michelle O. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Steve. Where do you think the other characters come into this crime?
Um, well, there's a lot of different ways we can look at that. And that, we got Carter with his multiple tentacles, and does that mean it? And was it a lone wolf or not? And then, of course, we got the two sketches, which will be brought into this defense regardless. And whoever assisted in making those sketches are going to will be called to the stand. And so we have, we're law enforcement, we're looking for different people. And so were the other actors, it's quite confusing and is still confusing to me. And I won't know until some of these documents are released. And even then, I don't know if I'll ever be totally convinced. Currently, right now, if you had to ask me, am I absolutely 100% totally convinced that he's a lone wolf? I can't say yes. Not right now.
Okay, and I'm still searching for one. Okay. Can't find it. I don't know what the heck I did with it. All right, and Josh, Steve, some sources have suggested that RA confessions to medical staff. Not sure if true. How does HIPAA laws apply to inmates?
Well, if his medical conditions, they won't be able to release. Confession isn't a medical condition, so and depends what type of medical staff. Now, if this was some of the people such as what Dr. Susan and the ones that have certain certifications and what capacity are they working, that if certain things are said, there might be some type of privileges. That's out of my pay grade. I don't know. But just a typical nurse or something, I would not expect that the confession to them has anything to do with any of the HIPAA laws. That's just my opinion. I don't know. There may be a better understanding of that, but I don't know of anything right now.
Okay. Still can't find it. All right. And Sheriff Peach, will you and Mrs. Steve be reporting on the documents that will be released this week?
I hope. I don't see any reason that we won't, and I will absolutely work on those. Like I said, I don't expect the probable cause affidavit for the search warrant to be that outstanding. There may be some details in it that will be interesting, and if that's all we have to work with, that's what we'll work with. But I really want those returns of what law enforcement had to give back to the court and saying, this is what we took from that house, because that's what the case is built on. That is stuff that will be brought into court, that if they took it, it was analyzed, and it came back incriminating. Those are the key important points.
Okay, had that one. Blue light for Kamala.
Kamala and ours, $20 for y'all's trip. Don't let Ruckus Rock get you laughing so hard your side hurts. I'm telling you, he is hilarious. But I look forward to meeting him, and he'll not all that we're going to be doing will be full of laughs, because we do have some critical stuff that we have to do on a couple of cases. And I look forward to working with him, and he's going to be a great assistance to me.
Okay, and CJK, I'm still looking for the question that you wondered about. I do not see it. Maybe I've missed it. So if you can tell me the time, if you remember, sort of,
or restate it, and we'll pick it.
Restate it for me. Because CJK says they're running out of room. But I see nothing from you other than that one. So help me out. Maybe put it back in there again.
Yeah, things when there's a lot in chat and everything, we get there's things that get lost.
Absolutely, they get lost, and part of that is me. So there you go. Okay, let's see here. I got this and this. Okay, and 841. All right. Oh, nope, already done that one. And Steve, if RA is not cooperating with his lawyers, can they withdraw?
You see that happen sometimes, but generally, the courts are not going to allow that because they will always protect the rights of the defendant. And if the defendant is in some type of limited mental capacities, the courts are going to make sure that he is properly represented and does have the ability for the arguments that can he stand trial. And of course, for him to not have that mental capacity, that takes a lot of review, and it's not something that just him walking around looking sad qualifies him for that. There has to be a lot of analysis of his mental state before that would even be an issue. Because anybody can look sad. I can look sad.
Bless you. And Josh, given that, would a peer companion sent in to specifically get a confession be considered an agent of the state?
Could be, absolutely. And that's the thing you have to be careful about, that if you go in there and now if you're just sending inmates in and that they're in certain areas nearby, that's one thing. But if you put them in a certain area and say, I want you to go and talk to such person, there is a possibility that the courts may look at that as an agent of the state.
A little off topic. Miranda Lee, sorry if you already went over this, but what's your travel schedule coming up?
We haven't had it set in stone. We had some things come up, but it will be the second week of July. That's all I know right now. I don't know exact dates and where we'll be in what state on what date yet.
And Simon Wright, West Yorkshire. Will we get to know what prompted the search of RA's home in October?
I hope that will. We had what they said of some of the information that from the arrest warrant probable cause. They made references of what caused them to look at him, but it's possible to be within the probable cause affidavit of the search warrant, and that would be interesting if they change some of the information or if they bring up certain points, certain key points. So that is the good question there. It really is, because I am interested exactly at what point, and is there a certain um, tip or something that they will say prompt that search? Good question.
Oh, perfect. Let me go find that one. Okay,
You got your time?
No, well, CJK put her thing in there. All right, here we go. Thank you so much. CJK, it said the unspent shell has a lot of marks, making it unusable per another host live. Loading, unloading, ejecting. Can there be too many markings on an unspent shell? Experts still testify.
Okay, making it unusable as for being able to be used as evidence, not as okay. Um, I don't believe so. Even if because it's like fingerprints. How many thousands and thousands of fingerprints have I looked at in my life? And each of them sometimes are not a single impression or a single latent print, single transfer. Sometimes you'll see where someone's handling something and you'll have that fingerprint overlaid by the fingerprint again. And you can still look at certain that once you get within a certain zone and you um, uh, blur out everything else, that you can still identify that fingerprint in some cases. And that will be the same with this bullet. That yes, let's say that he was used to commonly racking, working the slide, working the action, and then ejecting these unspent rounds. If that was a normal thing that he did, even at home when he cleaned it or stored it. And so you could have a unspent round that has multiple times that it worked through the ejection process. But even within that, like I said, there's certain areas and certain regions that if you can um, um, isolate them as it being a specific region of a print or any type of transfer or any type of metal, such as the ejectors or uh, uh, any type of uh, that would from transfer from the hard steel to the softer um, uh, brass casing. That yes, if it can be isolated, it can still be identified. In my opinion, I'm not a bullet expert, but I'll take the word of this bullet expert right now. But in fingerprints, sometimes you can get where they're overlaid so much that you can't read them, and so that is a possibility. But they say they can link it, so there's a reason they say they can link it.
Okay, so let's find out. All right, so thank you for retyping that. I appreciate it. All right, and M. Cunningham, do you think bone jangles will need to help assist in this case?
Um, if we get some of the report, and like I said, I do not think that we will get that. And even if some of the injuries or whatever are discussed at certain parts of the case, um, I don't know if I'll go that route as far as we're talking about children, and I doubt that I'll go that route.
And Molly, is geocaching more accurate than pings to towers? I think they did that in this case.
I don't know. I would expect so. Now you're talking about there's um, the geofencing things that they do, and I would imagine that anything is more accurate than what we experienced in our pings. Yeah. Any, any testing would be
somewhere in this 5 miles.
yeah, somewhere in this 5 miles is where Steve's at.
That made me feel all warm and fuzzy. All right. And Josh, Steve, have you heard any of the rumors that the unspent bullet was found later and doesn't have an evidence photo associated with it? That's highly unlikely, right?
I hope that's not the case.
Ooh, me too.
I hope that's not the case. I really do.
That's scary.
Yes. But is it a possibility? Yes. But that's scary. I hadn't heard that rumor.
IMS 93, if RA's confessions are true, do you think it means he acted alone? Wouldn't you expect if he confessed, he would say if he had help?
Not always. You'll see that sometimes people will jump in front of the bullet or in front of the train. It does occur. And I don't know, but we'll just have to see. If it wasn't for the two sketches, just absolutely drives you crazy. We have between 18 and 40, that part of it, and then with the other two search warrants and other individuals between Logan and between Klein's, just absolutely drives you crazy.
Okay. Let's see here.
But if he does say that he is a lone wolf and he has details of the crime that no one else has, that's good enough. We'll take it. But that may not answer everyone's questions.
Okay. And Gary Clemens, could they check his phone GPS?
I hope they do. I hope his phone was on. I hope it had that capabilities, and it's in there. I hope they do.
All right. Deborah Brown, what is the difference between a jail and a prison in terms of hardship?
Inside the county jails, of course, they're a little bit less intense. And you don't have these case hardened lifers, because there's certain criminals when you get in a state prison and you're in a maximum security prison, they're maximum security for a reason. You're dealing with a whole different class of individuals. You're dealing with people like that would absolutely go out and commit 2 homicides on children. Those are the typical general maximum security. They're people that are absolutely, if you're in the same room with them, you're at risk 24/7. If they have access to you, you're at risk 24/7. In the county jails, you'll have everything from misdemeanors, from shoplifting, traffic offenses, people that violated probation, and you may not have those hardened criminals that are doing sentences or felonies for that you'll have in a maximum security. Opposite poles.
And from Brenda, the DP is why he's acting like he is. Maybe can't DP a mentally disabled person?
I think that some states have, and but that's always an argument. And is that one way that he's looking at it? Absolutely possible. And yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely possible.
And Simon Wright, what documents are you hoping will be released?
Specifically, yeah, I'd like to have them all. But specifically, I want that search warrant return of the evidence that was seized at his house, including now not only his house, but I also want the search warrants of his vehicle released and what they took from the vehicle, and what type of evidence possibly that they're looking for. Did they take those seat belts out? Did they take that steering wheel? Did they take the carpet? Did they take the seat covers? Did they leave the car drivable? Because they would have to replace a lot of things, because if the individual that was walking along that road was muddy and bloody when he got back in his vehicle and left that crime scene, I would expect that there will be a transfer of evidence within that vehicle.
Sort of like mine.
Yes, sort of like yours, but yours is from synthetic blood, not real blood. Well, no, it probably has real blood.
I'm still a crime scene.
Yeah, even because I injure myself all the time.
All right. And Roxy, Steve, do you think he has done other crimes that nobody has known about?
Yes, it's hard for me to believe that this individual would wake up in February one morning and decide to go there and just out of nowhere commit such a horrible crime. And of having that ability, and we have to look at that. Not only did he commit that crime that day, but he instantly, after it was over, went back and re-entered society as if nothing happened. And we know this for the fact that he spoke with law enforcement within hours or days of committing this, and was able not to go blubbering, acting like a suspicious person, because the conservation officer didn't place him under arrest for being a nut. And so if you have an individual that has the abilities to commit such a horrible crime, and then like a light switch re-enter society, and nothing's going on for 6 years, and he's absolutely off the radar, off the grid, and no one suspects him of it, that he has the potential to have many other victims of different types of crimes. Not saying they're all homicides, but I would expect that he does have some dark history.
Okay. And Roxy, Steve, do you think that he's? Oh no, we've already talked about that.
Yeah, that's one we
My
just
bad.
did. Yeah.
Sorry. And Dave, Steve, do you think the prosecutor's statement of other actors might be a problem at trial if there are none?
Well, we have to see what type of actors. Was it just an alibi? Was it someone that helped conceal some evidence? Or, I mean, there's all different types of things. Was it someone that removed certain information during that time period that might show him dressed up as a BG? There's all different types of possibilities, and who those actors are and what acts they committed. Doesn't always just have to be acts committed at the crime scene.
Let's see here. I'm missing one more. I'm gonna find it right there.
Okay.
You still got 16.
All right.
Don't make any work tonight.
Excellent. I like to work.
All right. And unearthed secrets. Have we already talked about if he's done anything like this before? Well,
Yep. Just did. Appreciate unearthed secret. Liked your video today. ERI. Thank you.
And Junior Johnson, what would be worse, solitary confinement or have his ruckus as a cellmate?
That's unfair. That's unfair. Yeah.
He's not going to answer that.
Oh, no. Only if Ruckus let me use his hairbrush.
All right. And Kamala Norris, if RA takes a plea deal, doesn't he still have to tell the court what and how he committed the
homicide? That depends. We saw that with BTK. Absolutely, he did. He everything about the crimes he spoke of. Then we got to see what the Golden State serial offender, what he had to do. And he just was rolled into court in his little wheelchair, and he didn't have to make any other than plead guilty and take his sentence and go. So what will Indiana do? I believe that if he does confess, and I think we have a higher possibility of that now, I'm hoping that he would have to clarify what went on that day.
Okay. And Michelle O, Mr. Steve, which documents are you most looking forward to see? We've already done that one too.
Yeah, that return. Okay. I really want to see that return of the vehicle and of his home are my top two.
Okay. and unearthed secrets. Steve, did weather impact any of the crime scene at any point? I really don't know too much about this case.
I think the days of when the FBI and the crime scene processing, the weather conditions, I've never heard anyone mention anything other than being cold. But we saw them in the creek, and it was bright, sunny, and then of course whatever nightfall may play upon it. But that's the only issues that you would have. But the rains and stuff, I don't know what the each day was, but I don't recall any inclement weather impacting any of the searches at that point. We're getting lightning. Excellent.
And this is from Jones. Steve, do you think he had the daughter's picture taken at the bridge so he had a permanent trophy he could leave out in plain sight? I still believe the daughter and son-in-law turned him in.
That is absolutely something that has to be considered, and it is
perfect sense to me.
Yeah, but if this is, and like I said, I've always thought the offender of doing this would be a psychopath, and I still believe, and I think Richard Allen is, my personal opinion, is a psychopath for the fact that you cannot take the lives of two innocent children and then go back and check out somebody at CVS the next day or the day after, as if nothing went on, or process the photos for the family, or set in any environment where there's a picture of sketch over your shoulder and act as if all is well within the world. That is the mentality of a psychopath, and I'll believe that till the end of my days.
And we already talked about the bullet not being usable, right?
Yes.
Okay, so one down. All right, and Christine Beach, Mr. Steve, it has been mentioned that Libby resembled RA's own daughter in many ways. Just hard wrap mine around why he would unalive the girls. I have not seen any reports that RA was a bad father. That's not a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's been a lot of comparisons on that, and I hate that for the family. I hate that for the daughter.
For the daughter.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely. That's something that she'll have to look at, and it's unfair. But it's this individual, if he's the one responsible, that's done this, not the daughter, but him.
In blue light.
Here,
Teresa K.
What do you make of Richard Allen not showing up in court? I knew that the wife, but I didn't know that the daughter hadn't showed up. That is interesting information.
Okay, and from Molly at True Crime Web, follow up on Josh. With a PCA, does LE have to show the evidence they state they have to the judge before the judge will sign off on it?
They can testify. I mean, you're sworn in when you go in to do the probable cause affidavit. And these probable cause affidavits, these search warrants, and probable cause affidavit for the search warrant. There are very, very specific guidelines that you have to follow. You have to give certain amount of evidence that is probable cause, which is just over 50%, that more than likely this is the individual responsible. And there's certain details in those that you don't always see. They don't release everything, but they'll give directions to a house. They'll have what the house looks like, so that anyone could take that search warrant. Now, this is the way we were trained back in the old day. We were MapQuest before MapQuest was even thought of, for the fact that we had to ride on that. If you took that search warrant and you handed it to any individual at the department, that they could take that affidavit and drive to that residence, and it be the right residence. And that's what the old standard was, and I hope that's what it is now. But it also has to have enough evidence, and if the judge is reading the probable cause affidavit, and there's something unclear to them, they may request additional information, and you can testify to it and give verbal. It doesn't always have to be exactly what's written in it, but now it will be noted and documented of what that additional evidence is. And then the judge will sign off on it.
All right. And Josh, restating a question. If other search warrants are released, do you expect that some witnesses' statements might be clarified or more detailed?
Yeah, there'll be some basis for that they may redact the names and things of so-and-so, just like they did with some of the other information that's come out in the PCA that we saw originally, that they'll redact certain parts of it. But yes, I would expect that.
Would blood still be in his car 5.5 years later?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, there's yeah. If you I've with luminol and stuff, and it stays there, and it's extremely hard to remove. It's not easy.
This is priceless. SB 74, Mrs. Steve, is there crime scene tape around your foyer? No, but there should be. Sleuth Intuitions in chat.
Hey, good to see you, Sleuth. Glad you're here.
Yes, I should have crime scene around my
yes.
foyer.
Somebody called some of my exhibits the other day modern art. I love that term, modern art.
It ain't hanging on my wall. And SSS at True Crime Web. Wouldn't you say that him living his life, no mental health issues, no disturbances for 5 years after the homicides, that would counter any claims he has now?
They may, and they'll bring that up. But then again, you'll have professionals, and like I said, Dr. Susan and other people that are far better, have a far better understanding of what can happen, because people can have mental breakdowns at any moment. And I've seen it where people will be in one or act as one individual, and then within a few days they're a totally different character and act in a way that you've never seen, and what has gone on and what has caused this. And it could be for a lot of different reasons, and it could also be acting, but that's where the professionals will step in and be able to determine which way that is.
And Anna, it will be interesting if they saw animal hairs or dug up a cat. They didn't seem to seek certain animal hairs in the RL affidavit.
Yes, you know, I even looked up, I tried to find out about the cat hair and stuff, and I found that some of those animal hairs are hard to differentiate between. But yes, they didn't certain animal hairs, and what and is it multiples? Because it could be. You know, we have cats, we have dogs, we have a lot of dogs, and but yeah, great point about the different types of animal hairs. And if it is, because if they went there and let's say they did dig up a cat, where did they get that information of where that a cat was, and why are they digging up a cat? And that's because specifically someone that has that information would know that, and know where it was buried. Donna Walters, $2 super sticker. Thank you, appreciate that.
All right. And from Mist, do you know if his wife is still a supporter?
I believe she was in court, but I saw where a lot of the creators, thankfully, that went there to witness the court, that they were. They said that he never looked at her. What does that mean? It's not a good sign.
You wouldn't be looking at me because I wouldn't be there. All right. And J Farm 13, how much is he limiting himself for not guilty pleas since he has confessed many times?
The attorneys, like I said, they're going to have to make the best of it that they can, because I don't think they can keep all of this out. And they're going to have to sidetrack it side rail it by using professionals if they can get it into the courts of why he is doing this.
And Molly, was the pic of his daughter taken after the crime or before?
I believe it was after. I could be wrong, but I think it was after.
I have no idea. And Brenda, do you think RA has committed other crimes after the girls since they didn't arrest him for 6 years?
No, and I give a lot of credit to a lot of the YouTube channels out there. This was probably one of the most important things that happened to this case, and that's one of the good things about social media, because when Richard Allen went to law enforcement, if he went to law enforcement early on before the picture of Bridge Guy was released, and he didn't know that picture existed, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when he saw the news and saw him standing on the bridge in those clothing, and knowing he was there. And if he was wearing that, why didn't he call up instantly saying, "Hey, that's me"? And if he didn't do so, then of course that's going to be used by the prosecution, because we have later in 2022 when he says he was wearing a similar type of clothing. But it's just absolutely unreal, and so that will be some key points.
Okay. And unearthed secrets. Marty, how do you handle, quote, innocent until proven guilty when talking about these cases? It seems hard to try to do that sometimes.
Yeah, and I just have to classify it that it's all my opinion, and it is, because it is so hard, and I could never be on this jury, and so and of course they're not looking for people like me, but I
They
mean,
don't look for me either when
no,
I get called to
yeah,
the courthouse.
yeah, she uses me to get out of it all the time,
Sure do.
but you have to look at it, and we all draw our own opinions of it, and we have to always look at that. Yes, until that jury says guilty, and have they been guilty parties that have been found innocent? Absolutely, but there has also been guilty convictions of innocence. So it is a fine edge that we walk. Come on, please take Ruckus Rocks to a Waffle House on your drive to the next project. And don't forget the cheesy grits. Absolutely. Oh, there's somebody that's after my heart, cheesy grits.
Yep. Got him. All right. And we've already talked about the bullet not being traceable to a person, right?
Well, yeah, some about if it's, it may or may not be. Did they get a partial DNA off of it? Or is there technology that may at some point serve that and be able to? Because if that was his gun and he loaded that bullet into that magazine, at some point he touched it, and there are abilities of that possibly at some point with advances in technology. Absolutely.
All right. And from Sleuth at True Crime Web, will they list why they were digging on Allen's property in the soon to be released docs, in your opinion?
And that's the thing. If they were digging in specific areas, it's because they were told specific things. And that may or may not be in that, or they may just keep it behind in the loaded up for certain dramatic moments in court. But or through discovery. I mean, they're not going to be able to do the any of this Perry Mason moments and shock the defense team with something that they haven't previously told them. Everybody's going, as far as in the court, will know exactly what's coming up and what evidence they have. And if he is the guilty party, the defense, if he's told the defense exactly what evidence they have and what it means, then of course defense will be able to address that. And because if he is the guilty party, he knows exactly why they were digging on his property and in certain areas, because he knows if they're looking for certain things in certain areas, he knows also who told them and what they're looking for. About 4 questions back, I may have not answered everything on that.
Well, good luck with that one. Do you remember what it was?
No, it was about 3 questions before sleuth.
Sharon, you're asking me to read a comment. We talked about the daughter on the bridge in the picture.
Yeah.
Didn't you already answer?
Yeah, that yes. If that was after the crime, then of course that is not going to bode well. And once again, we're talking about an individual that may be creating trophies.
All right. So I have no idea what time your question was typed in.
It was after Ann.
The one that you wanted,
Mm-hmm.
but she's been in here several times.
Oh, okay.
That's not the only one.
All
right. So if he didn't answer all of a question from somebody, send him an email.
Yeah, send me an email if I didn't get you.
We're about toasted today. Let's see here. I can't even get to the bottom here.
Okay.
All right. Let's see here. All right. So you still got some more. All right. And SSS, if he confessed, why are his lawyers pushing for a trial? If he's guilty, ethically, the lawyers would better advise him to decrease his sentence. I think they're trying to make themselves famous.
Well, now when some of this is entered, he may have not have started making these statements. So these can come afterwards, and through his decline and behaviors can change. And but absolutely, attorneys do at points become famous from these high-profile cases. And now, are they doing it for that one purpose? Hope not.
All right. Now we've got a blue light coming up for, I forgot, Golden Fire.
Golden Fire.
5 membership.
Thank you.
So
appreciate
much.
your support. Means a lot to us.
All right. And SB74, since wife's Facebook seemed to be devoid of any 2017 posts, what do you think was there?
Pictures.
Yeah.
Certain pictures that probably have certain articles of clothing. That's just my opinion. I have no idea, but I know what typically you take pictures of things that you enjoy, and you take pictures of people that you enjoy spending time with, and activities. Or that's the main cause of the social media platforms. And I believe if it was during a certain time period, that's everyone has an agenda. And if people take unnecessary steps that are out of the norm, there's a reason for it. And I would expect there was a reason for that. My opinion.
All right, let's see here.
We appreciate everybody being here tonight. Had a good crowd.
Well, I've got 2 more questions, and then a comment, and then we're going to cut it off for the night.
All right.
All right. So let's see here. And from Joan, do you think they could have bugged the car simultaneously with the search? He was in it 3 hours, had to be sweating. Then the wife joined in. Maybe he confessed then?
I don't know at what point. You see, at that point, he wasn't Mirandized. Could they have stayed and lingered and overheard some things? Is it possible? Yes. But we'd have to see if they were questioning, and because there's a fine line when you're at these search warrants. You're there and you're restricting movement, and so those hearings would, and that would be a hearing that would have to stand. Is he absolutely under arrest at that point or not? Because I don't think he was at that moment. But that is a interesting thought. I don't know if they would have bugged it, but they would have always had an officer, just for officer safety, that while you're conducting these searches, these individuals that live there are not, they don't have absolute free ability to roam. And you keep someone where you can see what they're doing, for the fact that you don't want them sitting in a car and reaching into the dash and pulling out a weapon and start a firefight. So generally, you have some safety protocols, and people are within certain distance. Don't know if that's the measures they took on that or not.
All right. And Olivia, too. At Steve, do you think the BG video showing BG's face was scrambled?
No, I don't believe it was. Now, do I think they had, for whatever reason, I do believe that there was some editing as far as the firearm. Until we get to see the unedited court version of it, I'll believe that until I think my opinion is that there was some editing as far as firearm, but as far as his face, I see no purpose in that.
All right. And then talking about the daughter, Danielle says the photo of RA's daughter was several years before the murders. It was a high school graduation picture.
I don't know, but I'm going to look that up, and we'll see. And that's possible. Which way it was, I don't know. Yeah. Either way, it's scary.
It is scary. Let's see here. And that's Danielle. Okay. Daughter's about 28, so she must have graduated 10 years ago or so. Okay. All right. So we're good.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody being here tonight, and I'm glad you're here. And y'all, absolutely, we could not do without y'all. This platform has absolutely been a blessing for our cold cases, and we enjoy doing that. And Mrs. Steve, our foyer is a mess right now.
It sure is.
And I've been working all day, working on another cold case. And tomorrow I start doing a bunch of shooting and
that should be fun.
Some of the exhibits I built today. But guys, I appreciate y'all being here. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, sub, share it with others, and absolutely appreciate everyone out there that supports this channel and all the ways that you support us. We thank you. Y'all stay safe out there, and I'll see y'all.
Thank y'all. Y'all are the best. Mods, you outdid yourself tonight.
Absolutely, Mods. Appreciate it. Thank you.
See y'all later. You'll leave it on that one?
Mm-hmm.